All right, so we're underway. I'm going to try a different approach today. I'm going to share a screen instead of share my screen instead of sharing a window, and then I can see the chat window a bit better. So share now. So Confluence should be up on your screens now. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see it? Can you see as much screen share coming through? Yep, awesome. Okay, cool. All right, so this one is the project administrators meetup. Last time we did this session in Jira, we looked through project settings and we didn't quite get to board settings. So today we're going to do the equivalent, which is looking at space settings in Confluence. So today I'll be using the IntegrityWorks demo site, and for permissions, and I'll explain this a little in a minute. For permissions, I'm going to use the IntegrityWorks main site. So this is a paid site. The reason for that is that the free version, which is the one that I've given you all access to, doesn't have the ability to set permissions per page in space as the paid one does. So I'll demo using the paid one for setting permissions at a space and a page level. So to access space settings, in the left-hand side, when you're an administrator, you should see the space settings gear icon. I've set all of you to be system administrators, so you should see that space settings link. If you don't see that, please let me know, and I'll change your permissions to make sure that you can. When we go into space settings, we've got a few different tabs up the top. Now, the layout for Confluence space administration is different, of course, to Jira project administration. So the first tab we've got is Overview. Then we've got Permissions, Content Tools, Look and Feel, and Integrations. So we'll go through Overview first. So here we can edit space details. So we can change the space logo, for example. So I could upload, browse and choose an image. Just going to set my icon there. And we can change the size that we want to set it to. Save that. We can change the name of the space. Remember from previous sessions how Jira projects and Confluence spaces have a key, right? So in this case, our key for this space up is Meetups. You can't edit the Confluence key, whereas you can edit the Jira key. So it's a little bit confusing. If you renamed the Jira project from Meetups to Meetups 1, for example, you would have a different, if you change that key to Meetups 1, then the key would actually change, it'll re-index, and any issues that had Meetups, Meetups 1, 2, 3 as its ID, if that then becomes Meetups 1, dot 1, 2, 3, then it would automatically redirect if you had a link in an email or something. That doesn't work with Confluence. Once you've set a space key, the key stays the same. The name itself you can change though. There's some new functionality here. We can change the status of a space from current to archived. So archiving of spaces and Jira projects is new functionality in Jira Cloud. And we can set the home page as well. So when you first go into a space, you can say what page you actually want it to go to by default. We can also, it's just got the, when it was created in here, we can change the categories. So this is just a way of browsing. You can put a label on, so documentation, software project, etc. Remember when we were saying A and Z, for example, might have thousands of spaces. It's just a way to make it easier to search and navigate. If you set a category, we can set a description for the space, and we can change who the administrators are as well for the space.
Paul, what's the notion of delete space?
Of delete space? Yeah, we'll get to that one. So I'll go through these other tabs now. Sidebar configuration, there's not many options here, so while it loads. The two things we can change is the overview that you see on the top left up here, and blog. So we can just toggle them on or off. That's the only sidebar configuration. There used to be more functionality in the old version, but now that they've got the ability to edit space shortcuts and move pages around and stuff, there's less options there. Archiving, like I said, archiving is a a relatively new feature in Confluence and Jira. So from here, you can archive a space. So if there's something that's, like it says here, if you want to remove clutter, you can just archive it off if you want to cut out noise, and you can always unarchive later. Deleting a space, so Ignacio's question here, if we delete a space, come up with this big highlighted warning here. So if we delete a space, then it's done. It's done and dusted. It used to be in the older version of Confluence with past functionality, if you deleted a space, it would stay in trash for a while. I've just tested this today with another space, and if you delete something, it doesn't appear in trash anymore. It's gone. So if you just want to hide something or tidy up, use archiving instead of deleting a space.
Okay, thanks. It just was a little bit, maybe it's just me. These are just, I guess, instructions to either archive the space you're in or delete this. I thought we were configuring archive spaces and delete spaces. That's what I thought, because
okay.
we're in the, you know what I'm saying? That
yeah. Okay, so really good point. So this is in the context of a space. So archiving a space would be in reference to the Meetup space. Good question. And deleting the space, that would actually delete the space that we're currently looking at. Yep, so really good point. Please don't do that with your system administration access. Okay, so the next tab there, any questions about these ones? So we've got space settings, space details, sidebar configuration, archive space, and deleting space. Oh, okay, cool. So permissions, in the free version, they've always got something, right? If they give a free version of something, there's always a way to upsell people. So with the free version, they've taken away the ability to set permissions, and so you can upgrade, right? So not available in the freemium. And it's got sort of grayed out here, an indication of what you could do. So with permissions, you can grant permissions for groups of people or for individuals. So we've got some groups here, and we've got some individuals. So you can see my permissions in the space, and I'll go through what they are. And you can also, with the paid version, you can have anonymous access as well. The types of permissions that you can have is that people can view and delete their own, that used to be comments, maybe that's spaces, I'm not sure, that's different. You can add pages, delete pages, you can add and delete blogs, you can add and delete comments, you can add and delete attachments, add and delete restrictions, delete mail, so there's some mail functionality in Confluence, I've never used that. And so you could send an email out to all your members or your users and that sort of thing. And space export and space administration. So this is grayed out, so I can't control it, right? But you can see that everybody's kind of got every permission by default. And then individual users, so there's Confluence Analytics, that's a system user, and chat notifications, for example, they don't have the ability to modify restrictions to spaces and pages, and they don't have the ability to delete mail or export a space, but everybody else has got the ability to export a space. We'll look at exporting a space in a minute, but exporting a space is different to doing a system backup. They're two different things. And anonymous access, you have to pay for that feature to be able to give anonymous access to people. So if you just want to make a Confluence page available on the web without people having to log in, then that would be how you do that there with the paid version. Permissions, if you have a client and you want a client to be able to access just one space or a subset of pages, but not other areas of Confluence, you'd have to do that with the paid version. Otherwise, if they can see one space in the free version, they'll be able to see everything. So you just need to be careful with that. And restricted pages. Again, this is also a limited or restricted function here. So in the free version, we can't do restricted pages. So let's have a look at how that actually looks in a paid version. So if I go to mine, so this is Integrity Works here. I'm in space settings again. The other tabs all look pretty much the same. If I go to permissions, we can see here it's not grayed out, right? And again, they want me to upgrade because I'm on a different version. So upgrade to copy permissions. So if I upgraded my instance, then I would be able to copy permissions between one space and another. So they get you one way or another. Okay, so here you can see that I can edit permissions for licensed users, and that could be by group or it could be by individual. And so if I edit permissions, not going to change it too much here now, but you can see that I could, for external meetup, for example, I could give external meetup the ability, that group, the ability to delete pages or delete blogs, delete comments, change restrictions to spaces, etc. So you can either select all, or if you do select all, then you've got the ability then to deselect all, which will just tick every box or untick every box. You can search for groups and add more groups in, and the same thing for users. So I could put in here, if I type Paul, then I've got my Integrity Works Paul user. So I could add my other user in here. You can see that's here, and I can select every permission, for example, or deselect all. If I deselect all, then it just drops out of the list after saving. And then you just go save all. That'll apply those permissions. Okay, and again, that's in the context of a space, so it's not at a system-wide level. Okay, any questions about permissions before I move on?
Yeah, Paul, like Nikhil here. So I had just like one small question. How, like right now you added that user, Paul. So what is the way to remove that user in case if someone wants to remove it?
Sure. Yep, good question. So if I go edit permissions, you mean remove permissions from this space, right?
Yeah, it removes permissions or completely like that row basically. Like I don't want to see
Yeah,
that row at all. Like
sure. Okay. So if I go and click select, deselect all, then it unticks every box in there. And now if I click on save all, and when my internet catches up, then you can see that users dropped out of there completely.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Yep.
So,
Good question.
yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's good. And for all of you, your questions are really good, right? Because you might all be thinking the same thing, or wondering, or say, "Oh, can you go back and show me that thing again?" That's a really good question because it gives everybody the opportunity to replay it and see it again.
Can you do that at the global level as well, Paul? Just like for that example user you picked up as yourself, can you do that at a global level? So all the spaces they've had addition to, so you pretty much just remove
Yeah.
them.
So the way to do that would be by adding them to one of the groups that by default has access to all spaces. So so for example, if I as an individual, I'm part of the administrators group. So by default, administrators and site admins get access to all permissions, essentially. So that would probably be the way to do it. If you want somebody to have global access, then you would add them into a group. Yeah. Okay. Good question. And system administration for Confluence, we'll go through that one on Thursday. So I'll look at deeper system-wide administration then. Okay, so restricted pages. So remember on the free version, we don't have access to restricted pages, but on the paid version we do. Currently, we can see that there's nothing that's restricted here in this instance. If I go and create a page, let's call this one restricted page. Actually, I think I may have prepared one earlier. No, I haven't. Okay, so under now, just going to middle. Okay. Sorry, it's just a little bit of background noise there. Okay, so if I create a new page, so let's just create one called restricted page. Spell properly. Page, and we're just going to put in here some top secret stuff that we want private for now. Okay, so if I publish that, so we can see on the top right corner here, there's a little padlock icon. So if I click on that, and again, you can do this in the paid version, but not in the unpaid version. So our default setting is anyone can view and edit this page. If I wanted to make that anybody can view that only some can edit, that's one option, or only specific people can view and edit. So let's do that one. And we could either type the name of a user or a group. So it could be that I want to put in administrators, for example, and just have all of them be able to edit or view. Or I can name an individual if I can type properly. So this other Integrity Works user, my other user, I'm going to say that Integrity Works Paul Casanova can, you can either select view, in which case you can't edit, or you can select edit, in which case you can view and edit, because obviously you can't edit without viewing. So I'm going to click add, and then I'll go apply. And we can now see that there's a red padlock up on the side here. Okay. Now, if I want to create a child page under that restricted page, and so child restricted page, the child page, we can see we've got this padlock up here, and it's red and it says restrictions apply. So pages beneath a page that is restricted will inherit the parent's restrictions by default. And if I want to change that one, they're inherited view restrictions, okay? So we would need to change the parent, I think, to be able to change that. So if I want to go, anyone can view and edit. Let's just test this out. Yeah, I think it's still going to inherit the parent's restrictions. So if I go to space settings again now, and permissions, and restricted pages, then we've got the list of the pages here. So restricted page edit is me, and I can remove the restrictions from here as a space administrator. The Paul Casanova Integrity Works user has edit, and same again, Paul Casanova Integrity Works, Paul Casanova, so can both edit and can view, and we can change those permissions from here. One reason that this is really helpful, if you had somebody who owned a restricted page and then left your organization, then the space administrator could come in here and make that page available to people again, instead of it kind of being hidden and not accessible or, you know, unusable by anybody.
So Paul, under the other login, which was the meetups, this is where you're actually setting the restrictions for this page. So if you were to log into this page under IW Paul Casanova, then we could see that you can view, or sorry, we got here edit.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yep. So if I logged in as Integrity Works Paul Casanova, then I would still see this restricted page and the child restricted page here. If I logged into here as a Meetup user, I might re-enable that the user. I'll just see the shared one. But if I do that, then I wouldn't see these two pages in this page tree here. And if I try to access via a URL, then I'd either get a this page doesn't exist, or you don't have permissions to view this page type thing. Yeah, or the page can't be found type thing. Yeah. So this is quite a useful feature. If you've got you want to do work on a page that's not yet ready for everybody to see, that'd be one reason to do this. Or if you had a HR department and there were particular pages or performance review type pages, something like that that you wanted to keep hidden, or prevent some people from accessing and others could access them, that would be another reason to do it. Or if you had a client and you wanted to prevent your client from seeing internal pages within a space, that would be another reason to do that. Yeah, just always be careful when you're doing this, because you might accidentally open up access to something that you don't want your client to see. So if you unrestrict a parent, you might forget about a page that's underneath that you still want to keep restricted. So yeah, just be careful about that one. All right, so that's restricted pages and permissions. content tools. The next one here, we've got quite a few sub-tabs under here. Now templates, we've talked in one of the previous sessions, we talked about templates and blueprints is the other term for these. Blueprints are the templates that are shipped with or available system-wide in Confluence. So we can edit a blueprint from here.
You dropped out, Paul. You there?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there is some internet issue at Paul's end.
Yeah. He's dropped out. We lost Paul. Ah, there he is. Back, Paul. On mute.
Okay, my apologies. Can you all hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We had yeah, snow and stuff here this morning, and my internet just dropped out, so I've just switched over to mobile data. So let's just see if it's still recording. Yes, still recording. Okay, cool. All right, sorry about that. Let me share my screen again. And we should be underway. Okay, can you see my screen again now? Yep, cool. All right, apologies about that, guys. Okay, so unmet needs. So we're editing one of the blueprint templates now. Okay, so unmet needs, I'll just put in here edited, and I'll click on save. So now we can see we've got two versions of our blueprint. There's one here, master project documentation, which has the same name, which is a bit weird, as master project documentation. Now, if I open up my Meetups tab, space in another tab, and it was, let's see, master project documentation was the template. So if I go and create a new page, and not that, if I filter here, so the blueprint for this space has been edited. Okay, so you can override a blueprint if you want a particular modification for a particular space, then you can edit that blueprint, and in the context of that space, it will change that template. If I go to, let's just delete this unpublished page. And if I jump into a different space, so let's go to the ancient circle space. And if I create from here, using that same blueprint, then the one that I get in here in a different space has the original blueprinted template. Okay, so it's quite powerful that you can customize your templates in the space of a in the context of a space. You can do that, so it's pretty handy. And we can play around with templates and blueprints more in future sessions. So we just want to be able to get through the rest of these items today. You can also from here create a new template. And so we're going to say Meetup space template. We can put in here, let's create a table. We've got 1, 2, 3, and put some cell coloring in. So I've now got a space template set up. So if I go and create another page under Integrity Works demo space, and what do we call that? We call it Meetup space template. So if I go and create, and I can filter here, Meetups space template. So there's a new template. Okay, first template use, just call this page. So you can see it's already, whatever the templated text is and formatting and everything, it's already there ready for use. Now if I go and edit that template, let's change that cell background to red or pink, orange, salmon. And we save our template. So any pages that I've created with that template won't be changed. But if I went and used that template again, Meetups. So if I go and use the template again, then the new template format takes place. Second template use.
So Paul, you've just used the same template that you created, but in a modified sense. Is that correct?
That's right. Yep. So I created a template.
Yeah, you added the green cell, saved it, and then you modified the template, that same template, and then decided to create another space. And so that now has the two colors.
So it's all in the same space. It's creating pages using that template. So when we first created, and it's good to go over this again. All right. So when we first created the template, we just had this green cell down here. We didn't have the pink salmon flesh tone colored cell, whatever you want to call it. And so the first page that we created, first template use, just had that green cell because that was the state of our template at that point. Then we went and modified the template and I changed the cell above it to that pinky sort of color. And then I used the template again. And the next page that I created based on the updated template had that change in it.
I just picked up on the left-hand pane, you're tracking the pages. And this is all the pages that you use.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So this is just replaying from, I think our first session, we might have talked about creating pages.
Yeah.
When you create a page, it will create as a child of whatever you're looking at that time by default. So you can change the location. So when I created, and that's good, very good pickup. So when I created second template use, that page, it has located it underneath first template use. And I'm just going to use it. Annotations here. Okay. All right. So you can see on the left-hand side here. Yeah. Cool. Good pickup. Okay. So any other questions about using templates? And sing out later if you've got any questions that come up. Okay. So that was our template editing. And templates are really powerful, right? You can do a lot with those. Reordering pages. Now, this part here, originally in Confluence, you could only reorder pages this way by going into this part and moving things up and down. So we can see here it's like an expandable tree. I'm just going to check the comments there. So from Ella Paul, can you only modify the template in the template settings, or can you use a template and extend it in a space and then ask for it to be saved? Yeah, good point. So any page in Confluence, we can modify that page and if so this one here that we created, new template headings. So this is not the template that I'm editing. This is the page that I created from the template that I'm editing at the moment. I'm just going to tag. Oh, no, I won't do that because every time somebody uses this template, Nicole's going to get tagged, emailed. So if I wanted to put an image in here, upload a file, upload our icon in here. Okay. So now this, again, this is the page that we're editing, not the template. But let's see what happens if I go into space settings again, go into content tools. And templates. I don't think from here, I can't import a template from here. I could manage global templates. We'll have a look at that when we do system administration. But if I wanted to edit this page, one way that I can do this, if I edit the page that I created and edited, so I'll put this heading in here. Now, with the old editor, this would work. Let's see if it'll work with the new one. If I edit my template here, so now I'm in the template itself. I go Control A, Control V. Isn't going to work for me. Hasn't posted that image. In here, I would add in the image. Where is it? Oh, that's interesting. So the editing menu options that are available to me in the template are different to in the actual page itself. So Confluence is sort of, in some places there's in some places there's still the old editing pages around, in other places it's the new pages, in some places it's kind of like a mashup. So I think Atlassian got some work to do on cleaning up their config or their build of Confluence. But here, if I use that page again now, it's got that modification in it. So that's a really good use case. Like quite often people will either create their own status report template or something like that, or a page that they start using, and they'll go, okay, other departments could benefit from this. Let's get it set up as a template. And that'd be a use case for creating a template based on that. You can copy and paste from the pages, but as we just saw, that's a little bit clunky. But that's a really good use case, is creating a template from something that people use often, from a status report or something similar. So good question. Okay. So with the reordering pages, now under first template use, we can move pages around this way. And you can see that the look and feel is a bit different over here. So when I move a page around, we get that line sort of a look, or highlights like this. We can drag things up and down. And you can see that the line now is slightly more indented. If I drop that there, it's going to go under test page. If I pull down just a tiny bit more, it's outdented to the left, that line. So now it sits above first template. It's no longer a child page. So if I went into, if I refresh now, the left-hand tree menu should update. Okay, we can see second template use is sitting above first template use. As I was saying before, reordering pages this way, that was sort of the old way of doing it. They've now made it that you can just reorder the pages in the menu on the left-hand side here. So most of the time now, that's where I move things. If I wanted to move a big set of pages, I might do it in here. But generally, this is where I would do it from. The A to Z, if I change that, refresh the page, then it reorders here. So first template use is just moved up to the top. I'd probably use that with caution, because you might have lots and lots of pages in your space, and if you order by A to Z and you can't, you get a bit of a shock over on the left-hand side here, your Confluence space users might be a bit frustrated with you. So you're probably better off just to move single pages or single parent pages rather than reordering the whole lot in one go, unless you got really good comms and you let everybody know in advance. Okay, orphan pages. This was a hangover from the old editor. You used to be able to create a link to a page that doesn't yet exist. I've just tried this out this morning again in the new editor. And with that, if I try to create a link to a page that doesn't yet exist, it won't let me. It won't save the link. So if you had an old Confluence instance or an instance that had been around for a fair while, and people had created pages from the old editor, then you may have some orphan pages. But from the new editor going forward, for example, if you were to set up a new Jira instance and Confluence instance now, you're very unlikely to see any orphaned pages in there. Actually, I had that the wrong way around. Sorry. Undefined pages is what I was just referring to. This one, orphan pages, is if there is a page that's not linked to any other pages. Sorry, I had that the wrong way around. So if I created a page that's not linked from anywhere, then it would appear that way. And I think that's probably also a leftover from the old version, because I have pages sitting here. Test rate page, for example, has a couple of pages underneath it. They're probably linked via macros. But yeah, if you've ever got any pages and you think, oh gee, I can't find that, then have a look under orphan pages. Undefined pages, that was the one that I was just explaining. If a page is created, or if a page is linked and the page doesn't exist, then it would sit here as undefined pages. Attachments for the space. This will list all of the attachments. There's not a lot that you can do here though. But if you're looking for a particular attachment, you can't remember what page it's under, then you could go here and you can find by file extension, you can filter by label, and you can apply labels to the attachments themselves. And this could be where you might find it if you can't remember, you know, if you had a chart or a report or something like that, that you had attached to a page and you wanted to locate it again. This would be one way to do it. So it's just got the name of the file or the attachment, its size, who created it, the creation date, and you can see that we can sort here by creation date or by any of these columns. The last modification date. I can change the labels from here, but that's about all that I can do. And it'll tell you what page it's actually attached to as well. Okay, so for the space, that's one way to manage the attachments. The next tab here is trash. I tested this morning. If you create a new space, sorry, if you delete a space now, then it won't go into trash. It'll just be gone forever, like I was saying at the beginning. So you need to be really careful with deleting spaces. If I had deleted a space, oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry, this is for pages and blog posts within it. Okay, let's try this out. Sorry, my bad. Child page 2. Okay, if I delete that page. Sorry, I had that completely wrong. Okay, so I've deleted that page. And now if I go back to my space settings and content tools, trash, now I should see a page. Drum roll. Yep, now child page 2 is there, sorry. Yeah, my bad. So if you delete a page and it's, or a blog post or an attachment, and you realize you did it in error, then you can restore that page, or you can purge it. Purge means delete, it's gone forever. Okay, it's going to restore the child page 2, and it should go back under test page. Child page 2. Pretty sure I had child page 2 under test page before, didn't I?
Yeah.
So it's odd that it put it in a different place. Maybe it does that to make it obvious, or maybe it's a bug. Not entirely sure. Okay. The export tab will let us, once this loads, this will let us export the space itself in HTML. So we can export it as a HTML file or a folder of HTML files, XML. And if you export as XML, then it can be re-imported into Confluence. This is different to a backup, but you can use it if you wanted to export a space from one place and import it into another. So say, for example, this Integrity Works demo site or Confluence instance, if we wanted to take this space, the Meetup space from here, and import it into the Integrity Works Demo 1 instance, which is completely separate, then we could do it that way to copy spaces between Confluence instances. Needless to say, if we then continued to edit this one under Integrity Works Demo, it would not be in sync with the one that we had exported and then imported into the other space. So we'd need to replicate changes. We can also export the entire space as a PDF. And so if we do that, so if you had documentation for software or a project or something like that, then you can export the entire thing to a PDF. I haven't played with PDF style sheets, but you can modify the layout. Sometimes, especially with the old editor, you may have had tables that were too wide for the PDF and might get chopped off. So you can play around with the styling if you wanted to change the way that the PDF was exported. So there's that. RSS feeds, personally I've never used this. I think this is just old functionality. I don't know whether people use RSS much anymore, but you can create an RSS feed to pages, blogs, mail, comments, attachments, etc. from in there. Any questions about content tools before we move on? Okay. Look and feel. By default, there's only a global look and feel. They used to have available a few different look and feels. There used to be navigation on the left, navigation on the top, like a documentation type look and feel, or a wiki look and feel. So there's only one by default now, which is a global look and feel, but there are plugins if you wanted to get a different look and feel for your Confluence space. And so you can have a different look and feel for different spaces. So this one for meetups might have one particular style to it or look and feel, and another space might use the default, for example. So you can choose a new theme if you wanted to apply that to the space. So you'd do that here. The header and footer. If you had a header and footer that you wanted to have appear on every page, here's the header. My hands are very cold in Ballarat today. Here's the footer. That's my excuse for typing anyway. So now if I went to any page in the space, you can see here's the header. Now, this is what I've just put in. Here's the header here. That's different to this bit here. This is the header, okay? That's some other editing in the page itself. And down the bottom, here's the footer. So if you had a particular copyright or something like that that you wanted to apply for your client to be able to see entirely throughout the space, or when you export to PDF and you want that header and footer to appear, that's how you would do it. So let me just take that off. Okay. PDF layout, we just mentioned before that you can modify the PDF, the layout. So this is where you would do it here. Other people have probably had more experience with CSS and all the rest of it than what I have. I haven't really played with this yet. So if anybody wants to play around with this and demo it at some point in the future, you're more than welcome to. And there's also a PDF style sheet as well that you can modify for this space. So it doesn't affect the rest of the Confluence instance, just the particular space that you're looking at. Integrations is the last tab here. So we can set up application links here. So if I wanted to add a link, at the moment I've only got Jira as an option that I can create a link to. This is kind of weird because I can pull data from Jira into Confluence without that link. So I'm not actually sure what this link does for you now. It might also be a leftover. You can see that the icon for the Atlassian icon is the old style one. So I think this is a bit of a leftover. That's what Atlassian's icon used to look like. Now they've got this different sort of a shape thing. So I think that's a leftover. You can also integrate with Slack and a range of other tools as well. I haven't got these turned on yet. But from Jira and Confluence, you can mention, I think, a Jira issue or a Confluence page and put a comment on. In Jira, I think you might be able to change the status and stuff. And you can also feed from Jira and Confluence into a Slack channel if you wanted to. Which is pretty cool. It means that people don't have to rely on email notifications or go into Jira and Confluence if they just wanted to be kept abreast of what's happening with the Confluence space and the Jira issues. So that's space settings in a nutshell. I know that was fairly quick. I'll make the recording available again so people can play it back and try things out and play the video while you're playing around if you wanted to. Before we move on, Ella, believe you can integrate with Miro and others? Yes, you can. I haven't played with that yet, but I've seen in Miro documentation that you can integrate with Jira. I'm guessing you can integrate with Confluence as well. That'd be something really cool to try out. I don't know if anybody, Ella, have you played around with that before, or you've just heard about it? Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. So that could be something that we can explore in a future session as well as go further on integrations, maybe as part of one of the system administration ones. We've got about 12 minutes left. If anybody's got any questions or they want to see any of these items again, we can run through those. Or I can show you how to use the old editing experience to accomplish what we were trying to accomplish at the end of the last week with the embedded what nested includes in an expand and that sort of stuff, or we can play with other macros in Confluence. So I'll throw it over to you guys. Is there anything that you want to see again, or anything that you want me to talk a bit more about in what we've gone through today so far?
Oh, with those nested includes and expands, the stuff we did last week, personally, I wouldn't mind revisiting that. Just me though.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, thanks, Ignacio. Anybody else got any questions before we go into the other?
Confluence, yes, for administrations for groups and users and permissions for Jira was something I had a few questions on. But yeah, I'm happy to take that on after you finish off with the meetup.
Yeah, no worries. So maybe if you, you're on the Slack channel, aren't you?
Last I checked, yes.
Yeah, no worries. If you can message me, actually, I'll send you a message now on tag you here, and oops. Okay, if you can, you should get a notification. If you can message me on that channel, then everybody else will be able to see it, which is fine because everybody else will benefit from your questions as well. And then we can talk about it on the channel here. And if there's content that we need to present, then I can include that in a meetup that's coming up. That'd be really good.
Sounds good.
Cool. Thanks, Ron. No worries. Okay, so let's have a play around now with some of these macros. Just going to revert to the last published version here.
Yeah, the macros just threw me. Just trying to review it.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, no problem at all. Okay, so let's go back to out of space settings, and we're just looking at our Confluence space again. So last week we were trying to play around with status reports here, and I wanted to have this part down the side here, these Jira issues, appearing as a collapsible section. Remembering that this status reports page, it's pulling data automatically from the pages that sit beneath it. So there's a customer interview report template example. I'll open that up in a new tab. And here's a new page. They're the two pages that are appearing. Can anybody remember what label it was that we used to pull the data through to this page? Bit of a homework test. It was the status reports label. So let me edit this one. So this is a parent page that we were just looking at, and the data is just pulled from a macro. There's nothing else to it. Okay, there's no other content in the page. If I edit that macro, it's pulling pages, pulling data from the pages beneath it, or within the space actually, with the label of status report. So it's pulling those anything, any data from pages in this space, in the meetup space, that's got a label of status report on it. In the current space, so we could make it this space or a different space. We can add a filter. So I could say only with the current ancestor. And I think this is where Confluence hung on me last week. So let's just see if it'll work this time. Drum roll. Okay, no error. Good. All right. So last week, this is where Confluence is playing up on me. If I go into one of these sub pages now, actually, Let's jump to a different tab. So under status reports, we've got customer interview report template example being pulled through, that data. And the columns that we've got here is title, report date, sprint, and work completed. And if I go into this child page now, we can see we've got a table at the top here. And we've got the rows, report date, sprint, work completed. And there was also a title appearing. So that's the title of the page up here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 attributes. And if we go back to that parent page, they're pulled through here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So,
sorry,
okay.
Paul, just to unpack this a little bit then. So what we're saying is you've got projects, here's a new page, customer interview report template example, nested pages. So they're pages, child pages of status reports. You mentioned the notion of labels. So is a label just a static label? It doesn't appear to me. Label seems to do something under the covers. Is that correct? So I slap a label. A label is a reserved widget or gadget that then creates something or tags something in a way that then Jira knows what, Confluence knows what, or the space knows what to do with it. This is what I
Yeah. Yep. Good point. So labels, really they're just text, but they're an element that you can add to any page, and you can have multiple labels on a page. And the labels are a data attribute of the page that Confluence can look for, I guess. So if we go, so you can see here I've got 2 child pages listed, customer interview report template example, and here's a new page. There's no other pages showing here.
So these 2 pages have to be created first.
Yes, that's right. So the label is attached to these pages. Yeah, good point. So if I go to the customer interview report template example and scroll down to the bottom, we can see that it has a label of status report. I could put other labels here as well. So if I wanted to put another label of Ignacio. Okay. All right, let's play around with this. Now, if I go back to the parent page, we can see we've only got 2 pages of the 3 child pages appearing here. So customer interview report template example, we can see that's showing here as a child page. Here's a new page, is also showing as a child page. But the top one here, project status template example, it's not appearing yet because it has no label. If I add the label for that one of status report, now I go back to the status reports page and I refresh. It's going to make a liar of me. Okay, so it was project status. I've applied the label. Maybe it's re-indexing. Okay. Now if I edit, let's say.
Just try adding the another label also.
Yeah.
I think so. It's
you know why it's not appearing, I think?
the other label
It's
also, I think so.
It's because of the table. It doesn't have a table up here. I think that might be it. So we've got report date, sprint, and work completed. If I add that table in here, I'm going to delete that. And if I insert in here, remember we said we could either navigate via that menu or we can type, and it was a page properties. I know this is difficult to remember, okay. Remember that the parent page is using a, let's see, if I edit this. This is a page properties report macro. And the child page has a page properties. And so if I put in here a table now, and that table has report date, sprint, and work completed. So I have report date, sprint, oops, okay, and work completed. make this a table options, I'm going to have a header column and get rid of my header row. That's just a formatting thing. It's not really of any value or significance. Make it bold. The third column here, I'm going to get rid of. And my report date, I'm going to put a date in here, oops, of 4th of August. Sprint 2, it's just a text value. It's of no significance. And work completed, I'm just going to use text this time. No work completed. Okay. Now if I publish that, and I've got the label of status report, got my table at the top. And I'm just going to publish this page again. Drum roll. Okay. Good. Didn't embarrass me that time. Okay, so so now I've got that third one appearing. So a label can be used as a way of filtering on pages. And so a lot of different macros can utilize labels. They're a good handy way to filter pages. Now, remember that projects, now which one was it? Okay, customer interview report template example had the Ignacio label as well. If on this parent page, I change the label that I'm looking for. So let's edit that macro again. This is the page properties report. I'm going to edit this macro. And instead of status report, I'm going to look for Ignacio. And you can see when I start searching for a label, it will automatically populate Ignacio because that one already exists. Okay. And that's all I've changed, just that label, nothing else.
But that label, but that label doesn't, all it does is it tags and okay, so this macro will look for that tag as long as that tag is available in those 3 different pages, right?
Or a page.
Or a page,
yeah,
right, right.
As long as it exists on a page somewhere.
Yeah.
So if so I'm using the Ignacio label. If I take off the current space one, now do you have to go, Ignacio?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, no stand up today.
No.
Okay, if I take off this restriction of in current space and I put another one, so if I said ancient circle, if I now search, it won't find any pages under the ancient circle space with a label of Ignacio.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
But if I make that the current space,
yeah,
and do that again, it'll find just that one page.
So it's okay. So it's just effectively funneling and narrowing down the scope of, I guess, spaces or buckets or pages that have been tagged. So it's a way of organizing your content so that you can better filter and extract data from, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And so you could imagine that you can expand on this, right? If we wanted to have a status reports summary page, some for execs, some for development teams, and some for other groups, the same pages with different labels and things can be pulled into different in a different summary page. So we might have one that looks organization wide, and we might say, well, I want to see a list of all status reports from every team throughout my entire organization, every space, right? I might have another summary status reports page, and I might say, well, this one's only for my development team. I don't want them being distracted by information from other teams. And so you would narrow it down and you'd say, I just want to see pages with a particular label in a particular space. And you can even say with a particular ancestor. So Medibank Digital, for example, when I was there, we had a few different teams. And if I had a status report page and I wanted to filter it just for my team, which might have an area within a Confluence space. So I imagine we were all sharing a space, but we had our pages under a certain section. Then my web team, for example, I could say I only want to see status reports that are sitting as child pages below the web team page. I know that's getting a little bit complicated now, but the the concept here is that you can filter down or narrow your pages that are going to be shown automatically via a macro.
Yeah, look, that's great. I get it now. The other thing that was confusing is when you were toggling on and off column headers and column rows. But I now noticed that whilst you're setting up the table in each of the pages, and they're just entries related with rows, defined rows, when you toggle on column header, those row labels become the columns. So report date, sprint, and work completed, and it appears as rows. But then you toggled on column header, and then they turned. See how they're.
Yes.
Yeah, they're rows, so but then they became columns. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a table formatting concept. Nothing to do with the status reporting. Okay. So really good point though. If I change this,
but that's what threw me. That really confused me. I didn't. Nothing, as you said, nothing appeared. Nothing happened, and then I've just noticed that when you rendered the new page, those three report date, sprint, work completed swung over to become columns, and that's when I picked that up. What you were saying,
yeah, got it. Okay, so the rendering in here of whether I make this a header column or I have a header row, right? Header column, I'm going to take that off. If I publish that page, the formatting of this table shouldn't have any impact on what we see here. Drum roll. Yep. Okay. So I've just changed it from a column header to a table header, right? So that doesn't have any impact on what appears here. What does have an impact, so you're exactly right. So we've got title, report date, sprint, and work completed. Yep, they are the column entries. And as you said, they've been swung around, right? So from this way to this way. So it's almost like a pivot. So the items that are table row data here have become table column data here.
And so what would the effect be if you toggled off column
actually
header, but you toggled on row header?
Actually, it has had an impact. Look at that. So the title is still there, but now I'm seeing sprint. Huh, okay. All right, so in the table, I'll put in a header, right, header. If I spin that around again, there you go. So we've learned something today. I've learned something today. Remember in the very first kickoff sessions and stuff, I was saying that I'm going to learn things too, and that you guys will know things that I don't know. So you've just taught me something. That's awesome. Thank you, Ignacio. Okay, so
pleasure.
For everybody watching at home, yes, it does make a difference. What you've got is a column and a column header or a row header. When you're using a page report macro, it does change the content of that macro. Thank you, Ignacio. That's awesome.
Okay. Together.
That's right. That's cool.
So is there anything else? Sorry, the other thing I noticed, little things like, this widget or this thingy was brought to you by Mural. I'm thinking, what's that? Is that just gratuitous marketing?
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
You deleted it. You said, let's delete this. But I noticed, I'm thinking, what's this? I clicked on it. And I got a little bit lost.
Yep. So if we create another one, I can't remember what that was now. There was a page. These templates, and yeah, I think you're exactly right. It's just a partnership and marketing type thing. Originally, there was only a handful of templates that have been created by Atlassian themselves, and I think they've seen a marketing opportunity, exactly as you've said, right? So let's see, 90-day plan.
I think I tried brainstorming. I'm not sure.
Oh, brainstorm. Okay. Okay, so let's just delete that unpublished page. Okay, go back to meetups and brainstorming. Yes, it's got the mural icon there.
Yeah, whilst you're doing that though, in the report, that template was brought to by Mural. I'm thinking,
Yeah, that's right.
And then it says delete, and I was able to delete it.
Yeah.
You pulled in some Jira tickets. How did you actually set that? Because I thought that was the core, the heart of the macro. The macro would then tell Confluence to go away and look at Jira, and for a particular key and status and action and all that, you would then bring in that data, and that would dynamically change depending on the changes made to the tickets. And this is what I was trying to replicate. I got a little bit lost.
Absolutely. So so let's use this template, for example, right? So this is the Miro one, and we can tag somebody in here. So if I say, oops, tag you in here, participant. Okay, so we've just got some dummy information in here, right? This is just text and stuff. There's nothing, there's not many macros in here. I've got a couple of tag macros, and just bearing in mind, there are a lot of different sorts of macros, right? So when you click on this plus button up the top, we can see that there are a whole heap of macros available here, and everything where there's some smart functionality in Confluence is kind of considered a macro. So an expand, for example, and a divider, a Jira roadmap, quotes even, they're all considered macros. And if we want to, so we can see there's nothing really particularly clever in this part, but here under this top table, if I wanted to insert some Jira data here, I go to the Jira macro. So I can either select it there, or I could / Jira. Yep. Okay, here's where I write my filter. So if I say project, let's just use one that it's auto-completing here. Project equals ancient circle, issue type equals task, etc. So we insert a Jira macro, then we configure the Jira macro, and part of that configuration is the actual query itself, or a filter. So you can see here that I could name a filter if I wanted to. Naming filters gets into some complexity around permissions and making sure that people have got permissions and that sort of stuff. If I search for that, then I get these ones back, these tasks. Then under display options, currently I've got that set to a table. I could do a total issue count and just have a number appear instead if I wanted to. And then we've got the columns to display. So this is the information that appears in the columns in the table. Yep. And you can either click backspace, right, if you want to get rid of some, or you can click on the little X to get rid of them. And if you click in here, then you can add some in. So I might say I want priority, I want status, resolve, example, etc. So now if I go insert, we can see now that we've got this macro inserted in here, and this is a dynamic part. Right. So if I publish, now I've got that Jira data automatically pulled inside here. Yep. Okay. So this is really helpful because you can have a mixture of static text, macros, Jira data, page searches, all sorts of stuff, composing a very powerful page.
Yeah, I recall it wasn't brainstorming. I was trying doing the SWOT. I looked at one of the templates was a SWOT.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's what I sort of. But look, this is great. I get it now. And the notion of macros, the word macro, I was looking at using in the context of, usually we have Visual Basic macros or Excel macros. I think there's lots of calculation. But even if you want to use quotes or the terminology macro,
yep.
I guess is broader. Yeah, that's good. So thank you. Thanks, Paul. That's
yeah. No, that's all right. Maybe in one of the sessions coming up, perhaps we should focus just on macros and try out a few of the different ones. I'd encourage you and everybody else to play with the macros in Jira and on the Slack channel. I know time's very difficult, but yeah, just ping any questions that you got to, like you have been. That's awesome. Yeah, good stuff.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks,
Paul.
Ignacio.
Terrific.
Nice. Did you have a good
That's
birthday?
Great. I did. Thank you very much. Yeah. Well, you know,
That's
all
great.
things considered, the day was sunny. It was beautiful. And Maria organised a nice dinner, and you know, lots of people sent me good wishes, and that was nice.
That's awesome.
Lots of food, which is good. Yeah. Thank you.
Good. No worries.
Okay,
All right.
great.
We'll
Thank
see you
you.
at the next one. And thank you for your participation and
My
yeah,
pleasure.
and your engagement. It's great.
My pleasure. Thank you, and talk soon.
Good on you. Thanks, mate. See ya.